The Kiev command bunker was tense, screens aglow with battlefield data. It was just after midnight, October 2025. Amid the chaos, a young analyst noticed a flagged anomaly in global trade data. A shipment of fertilizer from China was far too heavy, too expensive, and insured at an absurd rate. She called her superior, who quickly saw a pattern: dozens of similar shipments, all from Chinese defense hubs to obscure, Russia-friendly ports. The cargo was always mundane on paper: machine parts, farm equipment, but the logistics were off. Ships took odd routes, turned off transponders, and the money trail twisted through shell companies with no history. The officer's gut told him this was no ordinary trade discrepancy. He ordered a full data pull: shipping manifests, satellite imagery, financial records. For months, Ukraine had suspected a hidden hand fueling Russia's war machine, despite sanctions. Now the first thread of a global conspiracy was unraveling. The team worked through the night, every new detail confirming their fears. The fertilizer was a cover, the shell companies, phantoms, the money routed through Chinese state banks. This was a coordinated state-level operation. Billions were flowing from Beijing to Moscow, disguised as commerce. Ukraine had stumbled upon the engine of Russia's war. The discovery would change everything. The team realized they were on the verge of exposing a secret pipeline sustaining the conflict. The evidence was mounting, and the implications were enormous. The bunker buzzed with urgency. This was bigger than anyone had imagined. The officer briefed his superiors, who immediately escalated the findings. The world's attention was about to shift. Ukraine had found the smoking gun. The next steps would be critical. The fate of the war, and perhaps the world order, hung in the balance. The night ended, but a new battle had begun. The truth was out there, waiting to be revealed. The discovery was just the start. Ukrainian intelligence, with MI6 and CIA, launched Operation Golden Panda to map the network. They traced payments: Russian banks to Hong Kong shells, then to Middle East and African fronts, finally to Chinese suppliers. The shell companies were paper-thin, created weeks before shipments, with no real presence. Digital forensics led back to a Shanghai office linked to China's Ministry of State Security. This was state-sponsored, not rogue actors. Satellite teams tracked ships whose signals went dark at sea, only to be met by unmarked vessels for secret transfers. Leaked port data from a Turkish insider revealed the truth. Industrial drills were artillery tooling, water pumps were missile guidance systems. The deception was systematic. China was actively fueling Russia's war effort. The network's sophistication stunned investigators. Every layer, financial, logistical, digital, was designed for secrecy. The evidence was now undeniable. The operation's scale was global. Ukraine and its allies had the proof they needed. The next move would be to expose the network. The world would soon know the truth. The stakes had never been higher. The investigation was about to go public. The shadow war was entering a new phase. The secret pipeline's logistics were a masterclass in deception. A ghost fleet of old cargo ships, registered under flags of convenience, moved the goods. Captains followed fake routes, then received encrypted orders to rendezvous for ship-to-ship transfers. On paper, the cargo was harmless: textiles, electronics, but hidden inside were military components. Dual-use items were disguised as washing machine parts or commercial drone systems. Some hardware was physically hidden inside other goods. Standard customs checks found nothing. Over 200 voyages had occurred in a year, using at least 30 rotating vessels. The network was resilient. If one route failed, another opened. It was a shadow economy, running parallel to legitimate trade. Ukraine was fighting not just Russia, but a global supply chain. The scale was staggering. The operation's flexibility made it nearly invisible. The world's eyes were finally opening to the scope of the deception. The battle lines had shifted far beyond the front. The investigators mapped a $6 billion state-directed pyramid. At the top, China's Central Military Commission setting strategy and authorizing shipments. Below, state-owned defense giants like Norinco and Avik producing the hardware. Legitimate trading firms repackaged goods and faked documents, distancing the source. Chinese state banks provided credit and laundered payments through global shell companies. These banks were the financial backbone, ensuring smooth cash flow. At the base, hundreds of shell companies and the ghost fleet, disposable, easily replaced. Crews were mercenaries, paid for silence. The structure maximized secrecy and deniability. If exposed, assets were abandoned and replaced. Ukraine now had the blueprint to dismantle the network. The challenge was immense, but the path was clear. The shadow network's days were numbered. With evidence in hand, Ukraine moved fast. A top intelligence delegation flew to Brussels for an emergency NATO briefing. Senior Western intelligence chiefs watched as Ukraine laid out satellite images, financial trails, and intercepted communications. The evidence was irrefutable. China was Russia's secret quartermaster. Shock and anger swept the room. Western leaders realized Beijing's neutrality was a lie. The secret aid explained Russia's battlefield resilience. The Allies agreed on a coordinated response. First, a joint cyber operation to disrupt the network. Second, prepare diplomatic and economic countermeasures. China would be confronted publicly. Targeted sanctions were planned against implicated Chinese firms and banks. The Brussels meeting marked a turning point. The secret was out. The world was on the brink of a new phase in the conflict. Ukraine had forced the issue onto the global stage. The next moves would shape the future. The evidence was leaked to global media. Headlines exploded. Beijing denied everything, calling it slander, but the details were too specific. Markets panicked. Chinese stocks and currency plunged. Multinationals faced a dilemma: cut ties with China or risk sanctions. Russia, exposed and dependent, echoed China's denials but scrambled behind the scenes. The pipeline's exposure threatened their war effort. Diplomatically, the world demanded answers from Beijing. Neutral countries were forced to choose sides. China's image as a responsible leader was shattered. The hypocrisy was laid bare. The conflict was now a global crisis. Alliances shifted overnight. The world order was being redrawn. As diplomacy raged, a cyber war erupted. Operation Frozen Dragon targeted the pipelines, logistics, and finances. Hackers scrambled shipping schedules, deleted tracking data, and revoked docking permits. Ghost fleet ships were stranded, their communications cut. The financial attack froze billions, locking accounts and corrupting transactions. Payments vanished. Chinese defense firms went unpaid. Within 48 hours, the flow of aid slowed to a trickle. Ships were seized or stuck in port. The shadow network ground to a halt. Ukraine and its allies crippled the pipeline without firing a shot. It was a new kind of warfare, digital, precise, devastating. The operation was a masterstroke. The balance of power shifted. The world saw the power of cyber warfare in action. With the pipeline exposed and crippled, the West unleashed sweeping sanctions. Chinese defense firms and banks were cut off from global finance. China's economy reeled. Investors fled. The Shanghai market suffered its worst drop in a decade. China's export-driven model was suddenly vulnerable. Diplomatic fallout was swift. Countries worldwide distanced themselves from Beijing. China's no-limits partnership with Russia became a global threat. Allies shifted, strengthening ties with the West and regional powers. Inside China, political turmoil brewed as leaders faced backlash for the failed gamble. The aura of infallibility was shattered. The secret war had destabilized both Russia and China. The cost of shadow warfare was now clear. The world's alliances were being rewritten. Exposing the $6 billion pipeline was a victory as great as any battlefield win. Ukraine changed the war's dynamics with intelligence and truth. China's mask of neutrality was gone. Its role as Russia's enabler revealed. The operation set a new standard for asymmetric warfare. Ukraine proved information can cripple even the most powerful adversaries. Russia's war machine was weakened. China faced isolation and crisis. The no-limits friendship had found its limit. Ukraine defended the principle that truth matters. In a world of disinformation, shining a light was revolutionary. This was Ukraine's strategic victory. Resilience, ingenuity, and the power of truth prevailed.